Hello and welcome back to Big Mouth. So here's why I love the Timeless Child arc and the Timeless Children finale. There's a lot of things you can label at Chris Chibnall's door since he's taken over the Doctor Who franchise. You can say he hasn't allowed his Doctor, Jodie, her own clay to mould in terms of her personality and her character in what exactly her Doctor is. You can accuse him of not breathing enough life into his characters, not making his characters interesting enough. What you can say is, technologically now, his Doctor Who is probably the best yet. The cinematography is stunning. Just seeing those cyber ships come out of the sky, the effects, I mean, they're really Hollywood blockbuster level, aren't they? But it's all very well technically having all these advancements in Doctor Who, but it's no good if people aren't enjoying what you're giving them. And I understand that. I think what kind of, what gender the Doctor is, what colour the Doctor's skin is, the demographic thing doesn't matter at all to me. It's not even a conversation worth having. It's not a debate. The Doctor can regenerate into anything and anything can be done. But you've still got to tick off the most important things in telling a story, which is giving the audience remarkable characters that they're gonna get attached to. And I think this is one of the things you can label at Chris Chibnall's door. But what I like the Timeless Child arc and the Timeless Children finale is it's very innovative. It's different, it's unique, and it's compelling. Because you're going to a character who's now over 57 years old. Everything you thought you knew is a lie. You do not originate from Gallifrey. You were a child, the first being who could regenerate. And these people, formed their Time Lord society on your bones, on your abilities, on your legacy, right? And then, to make things even worse, they wiped your mind so you never knew what they did to you, right? And obviously, they can't kill the Timeless Child. I'm sure there's a way to kill a Time Lord. If a Time Lord doesn't regenerate in time, a Time Lord's dead. So we know that. So there could have been a way how they could have killed the Doctor, so just to wipe that evidence away. But, of course, they used the Doctor, and maybe they thought in the future they need the Doctor again. So I know a lot of people are shouting at me right now and saying, this changes the canon. And I think on the surface, from the outside looking in, it does look like Chris is taking liberties with the canon. Now, of course, we don't actually know if the Doctor is, in fact, the Timeless Child. I've been through this so many amounts of times. There's no confirmation from Chris himself. He did confirm that Jo Martin's Doctor is in fact the Doctor, not from the multiverse, not from another universe. She's an actual bona fide Doctor, which will be explained. The theory is from many, many Doctor Who fans, high-profile Doctor Who fans, that there is a missing kind of point in time from, I think, is it Troughton's regeneration to Pertwee or something like that? I can't remember what the explanation is. That would be quite exciting, wouldn't it? So I think Chris has set up some really interesting, storytelling narratives. As I say, you can place the other stuff I said at the beginning of the video at his door, and it's something that he needs to look at in terms of the character's personality and the development. I think very little has been done in character development for the companions, and the Doctor just doesn't seem like the Doctor, which is strange because in The Woman Who Falls to Earth, she really did seem like the Doctor, and she had all the characteristics. So I don't know what changed from episode 1 to the other episodes. Only Chris knows that. Only Chris and his team can explain that. But in terms of this Timeless Child arc, it's very, very compelling. And if you think about it, if you're a long-running Doctor Who fan who understands the relationship between the Doctor and the Time Lords, it's always been a very, very uncomfortable relationship. The Time Lords always wanted to stand there and observe the universe, and the Doctor wanted to be part of the universe, explore the universe. There must be a reason for that. Somewhere in the Doctor's Swiss cheese brain that's been wiped, he or she realises that they're a little bit different. they're not like the rest of the Time Lords. So we already know that. We also know that the Master is very unique and different. We know the Master was used during the Time War to fight, and that's why he always had the drumming in his head. So we know the Master's different, but we know the Master was insane before the Time War as well. And so maybe Chris has got an explanation for us. Maybe the Master, in fact, is the Timeless Child. Maybe the Doctor and the Master are brother and sister. Who knows? Some people would like that. Some people wouldn't. I wouldn't mind it. Listen, when you've got long-running legacy characters, long-running franchises, huge franchises that people love, people have always been comfortable that the Doctor hasn't got an origin story. And now the Doctor has an origin story. And I think this is something that Stephen Moffat was always very strict on. And I mean, obviously, since then, since the Timeless Children, he's turned around and backed Chris Chibnall and said everything is canon, you know, or canon doesn't exist in Doctor Who, or whatever they said. Listen, I think the Doctor Who canon exists. I don't think that Chris Chibnall actually deletes any canon by giving us the Timeless Child. I think that William Hartnell is still the first television Doctor we saw, and there was always this assumption that he was the first. And as I said yesterday on a video, I haven't watched all Doctor Who. I haven't seen anything before Peter Davison. I haven't seen. So, and I should really go back to that. That would take a lot of time, but I'd love to do it. I've seen individual episodes, by the way, pre-Davison, but I haven't seen all of the stuff. We know there's a lot of missing episodes and things like that. Some of it has been found. And so I don't know if there was ever, during the Hartnell era, him saying, I'm the first. Of course, we didn't know he could regenerate until he regenerated into Patrick Troughton, right? So there is that as well. So we really don't know. But if it was said in the Troughton or Pertwee or Baker era that he's only regenerated 3 or 4 times, then of course that is an issue as well that has to be explained within Chris's writing. And as I say, it is a very ambitious thing to do when you're looking at this canon and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to change this. I'm going to do something quite big here and say that the Doctor isn't from Gallifrey. The Doctor really isn't even a Time Lord. I mean, the Doctor is a Time Lord because that's the title the Doctor has. So the Doctor's still a Time Lord, but the Doctor isn't a Gallifreyan. The Doctor is another... You see, this is actually interesting, quite clever in what Chris has done. But he's given us a kind of origin for the Doctor, but it's not the ultimate origin. It doesn't explain everything. We still don't know where the Doctor is from, what being the Doctor is from, what planet the Doctor is from. We don't actually know. We don't actually know where ultimately those origins are from. And I suspect we may never know what world the Doctor is from, if in fact the Doctor is the Timeless Child, and I still have doubts about that. But if you actually think about it, as I said, saying to a character, in fact, you're not just saying it to the character, you're saying it to us, the audience. In fact, this is what Chris was doing. When the Master says to the Doctor, everything you thought you knew is a lie, Chibnall is talking to us. And I remember first hearing those lines, and look, Sacha Dhawan is a great Master, like all the Masters have been great, right? Some people think Dhawan is the greatest Master. I still have a soft spot for John Sim. But for me, it's Ainsley. Delgado was before my time, by the way. So it's very difficult for me to bring Delgado into the mix. But from everything I hear from other Doctor Who fans, Delgado is brilliant. And again, I have to go back to his era to really check him out. I've seen clips and he looks magnificent. But yeah, I would say Ainsley, John Sim, Sacha Dhawan does a great job. Sacha Dhawan's job as the Master is much more difficult than the other actors because he really has to eloquate his insanity, because this time when we meet him, he's absolutely unredeemable. He is insane. It's not that he's evil this time. He is just insane. He's more insane than genius, and his insanity takes away some of that genius, in fact. And this is how really he was able to be beaten in The Timeless Children, because he wasn't really thinking clearly at the end. He never thought for 1 minute that a human being would make that sacrifice, because he underestimates humans. So Dhawan is a great actor, and I've been following Sacha Dhawan career for many, many years, he always seems to play a nice guy. This must be the first time he's ever played a villain. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone who knows his body of work will comment down below and say, well, actually, he's played this character. And I'd love to know. But Sacha Dhawan is a really nice guy, and so he's really good at playing really nice guys. So this was a big challenge for Sacha, I know that. And he really, and what's interesting about what I said at the beginning of the show is that, I've said that Chibnall has failed to give his companions and Doctor a personality and character development. But within one season of 10 episodes, he was able to give, Dhawan's master everything that our Doctor lacks, everything that our companions lack. And for me, it's a schoolboy error. Or maybe he feels it's okay to give villains a personality and heroes shouldn't. The problem with Chibnall, I've noticed, he seems to think good people can't have flaws. And that's a problem. That's a very far left ideology where if you have a certain opinion, so if you're on the far left and you have certain thoughts and feelings that you are beyond reproach, and because you have those opinions, you're not a bad person. In fact, you illuminate perfection, and of course that's not true because nobody's perfect. But what he's tried to do to his companions and his Doctor is create this thing where they actually have no flaws, and characters without any flaws are very problematic because you can't relate to them as a human being because you know yourself that we all have flaws, right? That we all do stupid things, bad things, wrong things, as well as doing great things and good things. Nobody's perfect. We just hide our flaws from the world. I don't personally, especially on social media. I just let my real self come out, and I think it's important. And so I think this is a flaw within Chibnall's character and maybe Chibnall's politics. But in terms of his writing ability, he's a very, very good writer. Maybe, just maybe, he doesn't believe it. I mean, he was the showrunner for Torchwood, while Russell was working on Doctor Who. And he did great things with Captain Jack and those companions, or should I say the people who worked in Torchwood. So it's actually staggering the lack of development in his Doctor and in his companions. But in terms of a writer and a man of great ideas, he's really good. Broadchurch Season 1 is one of the best crime dramas ever made. And he had multiple brilliant characters in that show. And so it's actually staggering that mistake's been made within Doctor Who. But it seems like he's done it on purpose. But in terms of Sacha's master, it's all there. It's like he's gone to Sacha. Sash, this is yours. Get the clay, mould your character, do what you want. And it works. It's beautiful. And now everyone has a new favourite master, and that's fantastic. People will look back at Chris's era and say, well, we may not agree with you over the Doctor, we may not agree with you over the companions, but bloody hell, Chris, you gave us a fantastic master because both actor and storyteller sat down together to create something special. And this is where the best stories and the best characters are created, when you know that the actor is actually invested and he's not just sitting there going through the motions. And listening to Sacha speak and reading his interviews, it's pretty obvious that he's very obsessed with Doctor Who and this character of the Master, and he's putting everything into it, which Sacha does with all his parts, by the way. He's one of those actors. He's one of the best actors around, by the way. And I'm so proud that he's the Master. Great Master. And he really becomes the star of the Timeless Children. Again, somewhat problematic if you're a fan of this show and you're a fan of the Doctor, because the Doctor does take a back seat in this episode, but at the same time, this whole episode is about the Doctor being revealed as the Timeless Child. So in fact, the Doctor's still the star of the show, but she is in the Matrix, and that means that maybe Sacha gets a few more scenes than she does. In fact, he gets front stage, but that's because this is kind of, in a way, the finale is his stage to be the baddie. But Chris is not the first person to do this. If we remember The Last of the Time Lords, written by Russell T Davies, the season 3 finale, basically they shrunk David Tennant into kind of a baby Yoda. We barely saw David Tennant in The Last of the Time Lords to the third act of that episode, and it was all about John Simm and his performance as the Master. So actually, he's only taking what Russell already did. So, look, there's lots of people who don't like Chris's era so far of Doctor Who. I've kind of put out what I don't like. I think I'm someone who, kind of elevates towards personalities. And I think that we all do. But I think it's interesting how people... I understand why people on the surface are upset about the Timeless Child the Timeless Child arc and the Timeless Children episode, because you feel on the surface that he's basically took the canon that you know and love and broke it into two. I mean, to be honest with you, he's not the first showrunner to purposely do this. And I think Stephen Moffat did this. I think Russell T Davies, even though he brought Doctor Who kicking and screaming into the 21st century, there's certain things that Russell wouldn't mess with. And there's some things that he did. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I love Russell T Davies. He's one of my creative heroes. But a lot of people actually didn't like Russell's run in Doctor Who. I think mostly the classic fans. And you can understand that. And I think it's mostly the classic fans who don't like the Timeless Child arc and don't like the Timeless Children season finale. But I suppose maybe it's because I'm not as invested in the classics as I once was. I love classic Who. It is the origin of Who. It's where Who came from. Without the classic series, there is no Doctor Who. And listen, my first exposure to Doctor Who was the classic series with Peter Davison. But I did really embrace the revival in such a huge way that I'm kind of okay with them messing with it. It's interesting. A lot of people are triggered that it seems the first Doctor is a child of colour who's also a female. I don't have any issue with this. I don't see how you could. Listen, it is partly about representation and inclusion, and we can't argue with that. But is representation and inclusion on Doctor Who such a bad thing? And if your answer is it is a bad thing, then you have to question that. You see, I don't have any issue with representation and inclusion, being someone who originates from Greek Cypriot parents where I was born in the UK and I feel English. As far as I'm concerned, I am English. As some people say, you're not English because your bloodline, your DNA is not English, but that's how I think and I feel. You know, listen, it's not about any of that stuff. I don't care if the Doctor is a child of colour for the first time. Those things are irrelevant. They're irrelevant conversation. My point is it a good story? Does it work? Well, The Timeless Children is really part one of this arc. This arc is not done yet. And I think Matt Streamans has made this clear, who's now head of, drama at BBC. So he's very integral to Doctor Who and he's got his ear on the ground. He's worked on the show, for crying out loud. So I like what I've seen so far. I like what they did in season 11 in terms of teasing the Timeless Child and then really getting into the Timeless Child in season 12. And one of the elements I do like from Jodie's performance in season 12, you can see the more she delves into this during the season, the more darker she becomes and the more obsessed with it she becomes, because she's totally confused now. She thought she knew who she was, but apparently she doesn't. And apparently the people who've been following Doctor Who, I suppose, is there anyone alive who's been following it for 57 years? Maybe. But I think however long you've been following it, you know, Gallifrey, Time Lords, TARDIS, the Doctor, and that on the surface looks like it's being messed with. So I totally understand where people's hurt and upset comes from. But for me, it's about being excited by something. And there's one thing that Chibnall's Timeless Child and Timeless Children episode do for me. It does excite me for the future, because it's an uncertain future. All of a sudden, we don't know where we're going with this. And that's interesting and exciting. We do not know if Jo Martin will be television's next Doctor. It will be the first time we know who the next Doctor will be. That'll be interesting. It doesn't look like Chris Chibnall's leaving the showrunner's chair for a long time. And maybe Jodie Whittaker will be the longest running Doctor in the history of the show. Certainly maybe in the history of the revival. Again, that's divisive because a lot of people don't like her Doctor. Some people don't like her Doctor because she's a woman, and some people have got kind of justifiable issues with her Doctor. And I get that. But things can be improved upon. there in terms of her character and personality. It'll be interesting what they do with her in season 13. Rumours are she'll be travelling with Yaz. That'll be interesting. If it's just two people, going back to two people, back to basics, I still have the theory that Captain Jack will be involved in that. Or maybe Captain Jack takes Graham and Ryan with him, and maybe Captain Jack, Ryan and Graham will form the new Torchwood. I think a new Torchwood TV show is coming. That's why he's being reintroduced. That's exciting as well. But look, I know that Doctor Who's numbers are not as big as they used to be. I know that. I know it's not got the popularity it used to. But I think by the time Chris's run is over, maybe what he's doing may actually reinvigorate what's going on. Because one thing you can't say what he's doing isn't fresh, isn't new, hasn't got some originality to it. Because a lot of people say he hasn't got a lot of originality and he steals from other showrunners. Well, in fact, The Timeless Child is something totally original and brand new. I want to know what you think about all this. Do you totally, venomously disagree with what I'm saying? Are you spitting venom at your screen right now? Or do you think I have a point? Do you like the Timeless Child arc? Did you enjoy the Timeless Children? Or do you hate Doctor Who now? Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back with more videos probably tomorrow. See you again soon.